I used to be like, okay, how's Auburn going to win? When I watch Auburn football now, it's like, all right, how are we going to blow this?
Auburn hadn't been in a bowl game, 2 years, right?
Yes.
Hugh Freeze, you're basically a 32-year-old chick. You got to get married now. You got to get married right now.
What is up, Booster Club? Thank you guys for joining us on another episode of Crain & Company. Make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. And as usual, remember, without you, there is no us. To my left, former Michigan quarterback David Cone. To my right, former Western State Colorado wide receiver Blaine Crain. And we got another big game preview coming up for you today as Auburn goes out to take on Baylor. And before we get into the nuts and bolts of roster, scheme, how's it going to look, where the weaknesses, where the strengths, I would much rather, if I was an Auburn fan or a Baylor fan, I would much rather know early how good my team is and have a good litmus test, which this is on both sides. You look at Baylor, there's some hype for them. Phil Steele, I think, picked them to win the Big 12. You look at Auburn, some people are expecting Auburn to maybe finish in the top 15 in Hugh Freeze's third year. But I would rather know how good my team is early, or at least have an idea of how we can compete. I don't want to play Alabama A&M and beat them 85-0, or play the Illinois Institute for the Dyslexic and Scared. I want to know how good my team actually is. And early on, teams obviously do progress as you get on throughout the season, but this is going to let both fan bases know. And both fan bases want to know how good their team is as we get closer to the conference season. That's going to be an absolutely fist fight for each one of these programs. David Cone, you know, when you look at each one of these teams, obviously Hugh Freeze coming into year 3 needs to show it on the field.
Sure.
The off-the-field stuff's been great. Recruiting's been great. Transfer portal stuff's been great. But it needs to show itself on the field. Eventually, you're going to have to beat one of Alabama and Georgia. But you need to start off on the right foot. Then you look at Baylor. I mean, guys, remember a couple years ago after they went 3-9, we're like, Dave Aranda, he may be cooked. Yeah. This may be it. They turn around the season, the next season, go 8-5, and then put themselves in a position when you look at this roster to be able to compete, I think, in the Big 12.
Yeah, first off, let's just get this out of the way. Friday, August 29th at 8 p.m. on Fox. That's the kick time. I already can't wait, and I think maybe there needs to be a Crain & Company live stream.
There's probably going to be
Friday night. I mean, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but we need to have a serious conversation about that. But yeah, for a few of the reasons you mentioned, makes it even more intriguing. We know about Hugh Freeze and Auburn, and hey, it's time to win now, and you went and got another quarterback out of the transfer portal. I know we're going to be talking about Jackson Arnold here in just a little bit, but the same for Baylor. It's not like you're going to Baylor to play a first-year head coach, right, who can drop an opening game and it's not that big of a deal, or you're going to play a Baylor team where Dave Aranda is cemented as a 20-year coach there. I mean, he's got to prove himself at Baylor as well, and he's brought in some transfers. I just want to talk about Sawyer Robertson for a second, come in to play quarterback for Baylor, transferring in from Mississippi State. Here's some of his stats from a year ago. He was a 3,000-yard passer, 3,071 yards, 62.2% completion percentage, threw 28 touchdowns at Mississippi State, 8 interceptions for a quarterback rating of 153.1. Like, the kid can play ball. So when you add him on top of the other pieces that Baylor, and I know you're going to talk about the offensive line and some of the things that Dave Aranda likes to do on defense, like he brought over when he was the coordinator at LSU, but you've got a solid piece at quarterback. And so I just want to ask you guys, you know, how are you feeling about him coming in, and how do you think Jackson Arnold at Auburn is going to be able to progress? Because he did some good things too, didn't throw a lot of interceptions, but we know how it ended at Oklahoma, and that's why he had to find a new home.
Well, this is such a sneaky, intriguing quarterback matchup. And Blaine, you know, let's not forget, DeQuan Finn was the starting quarterback at Baylor last year. Goes down early. Goes down early. Sawyer Robertson, who was the backup, comes in, finishes the last 11 games. 28 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. I mean, over a 3,000-yard passer. Good runner, and I'm going to get to what worries me the most on the Auburn side with him. But you're running an air raid system. Jake Spavital, a guy we know, is the offensive coordinator there, the head coach at Texas State. Obviously, C.J. Kinney's at Texas State now. But don't let the term air raid just make you think all these guys do is throw it. Mm-hmm. This is not the Mike Leach version of the air raid where it's to the 10th and how much you're going to throw it. They've got 2 backs coming back as well, who were also backups Bryce Washington, over 1,000-yard rusher. Yeah. Pendergrass, over 600 yards rushing. So this isn't just we're going to throw it around and we're just going to throw hitches and we're going to try and spit hole shots and then take a shot over the top. This team can show balance. But Blaine, Sawyer Robertson, it's the improvisation stuff that worries me from an Auburn defensive to him standpoint. I know their offensive line, we're going to talk about that, may have the best interior offensive line in all of the Big 12. The 2 guards they return are as good as any you're going to find in the country. I'm still a little worried about tackle. But when I look at Sawyer Robertson, when the play breaks down, he's kind of got a little bit of that Sam Levitt in him where he can turn a bad play into a great play, not just taking off and running, not just running through the pocket, but making a guy miss, keeping his eyes downfield, and then taking a shot to a wide receiver core that they did a good job in the transfer portal. Yeah. There's some talented guys, including their number 1 guy, Josh Cameron, I believe, is coming back too. But Sawyer's a hell of a quarterback. This dude can ball. Sawyer, he can ball.
If we go back a little bit, I had Sawyer ranked in my top 10 quarterbacks in the country. I believe he was 9 or 10. I would say he's a good runner, probably not a great runner. He's good not enough on the Sam Levitt scale, for sure.
Speed-wise, I'm talking about making a guy miss.
And the thing about it, I'm glad you brought that up, 2 good backs. You did a great job going to get receivers out of the portal. And Auburn was a really good team last year against the what? Against the run. And one of the best in the nation is stopping that. So it's going to be interesting to see how those tables kind of turn. Is it 50-50? Is it 60-40 run to pass? But the real matchup to me and what's going to matter the most is Jackson Arnold versus Dave Aranda. Dave Aranda is a what? A defensive savant. Savant. I know they haven't been phenomenal on defense lately, but from a schematical standpoint, from a putting your guys in the right place standpoint, Dave Aranda is as good as anybody. And we don't know enough about Jackson Arnold. To me, we don't. We don't. I mean, he started 4 games at Oklahoma, then got benched. Hawkins came in. I know you can say offensive line injuries, receiver injuries. The guy fumbled the ball a lot. And when it comes to this, if you're an Auburn fan, you're going to know really early where you are from a quarterback standpoint. Because this game could dictate an entire season. If Jackson Arnold comes out and looks poor, Hugh Freeze is going to be more in trouble than he's ever been. Because Auburn is sick of what? Mediocre quarterback play. What killed them last year? Against Cal, against Oklahoma. Games they should have won was Peyton Thorne putting the ball in dangerous places and making mistakes late. If Jackson Arnold can, 1, throw it to people in the same jersey as you, all right, that's a good start. Not turn the ball over and make the easy plays easy. Yeah. Then it gets interesting. The matchup to me, I'm most intrigued to see is the way Dave Aranda is going to approach Jackson Arnold.
Yeah, and again, most games do come down to this, but the run game, whoever can run the ball early, it obviously sets you up to dictate what the other side of the ball will do. When I look at, you bring up Dave Aranda being a defensive guy. He is. Great defensive mind. He's multiple. They'll mix coverages. He's not afraid to disguise. But guys, this defense was ass in a casket last year for Baylor, which was shocking. Mm-hmm. If you'd have told me that Baylor was going to turn it around last year, I would have said, all right, the defense is locked down. The offense is good enough and not turning the ball over. That got them to 8 wins. That is not what happened. They had the number 1 special teams unit in the country, basically per capita with all of them. That's a big part of this game. We don't need to overlook that. But when I look at Baylor, the way they're made on defense, the best player I think they have coming back on defense is one of their interior defensive linemen, the Marshall kid. I think he's the best player they have coming back. There's some questions on the edge. I know they've got a young guy they're really, really excited about, but I think Auburn with their offensive line, which should be the best one that Auburn's had in the last 5 years, if they can line up and run the ball. I'm not talking about just pure RPOs where you have the ability to pull it. I'm talking about lining up, running inside zone, lining up, running outside zone, being able to run the gap scheme stuff that you do, have some quarterback run mixed in there. I think Baylor may be in trouble on the defensive side because I think the biggest advantage either team has in this game is Auburn's offensive line versus the front 7 of Baylor. And what worries me, though, and if you're an Auburn fan out there, we saw this a lot with Peyton Thorne. And I don't want to talk about Peyton Thorne anymore, but this is it's a salient point. There were so many times last year where if Auburn would have just handed the ball to Jarquez Hunter, don't even give a tag to keep it. Don't even give it to him. Second half Oklahoma, you're just gassed. Jarquez is just eating them alive going down the field. Then you get cute and you give the quarterback the opportunity to pull it on the RPO and spit it, and Peyton Thorne throws it right to an Oklahoma linebacker that runs it 70 yards for a touchdown until he flips the game. Auburn does not need to get cute early. You need to find out if these cats can stop the run. If they can stop the run. Because if they can't stop the run, then everything else becomes easier. You're going to start getting single coverage on the outside. Cam Coleman, show it to me. It's time to see you turn into that guy. You look at the rest of the receivers, Eric Singleton Jr., who I think is a first-round pick. You start getting those single cover matchups, and Dave Aranda can't move guys around and disguise. It takes it from algebra to simple addition. But if Baylor on the other side, with that interior of that offensive line, is able to line up and run it naturally with two really good backs that we mentioned, that's going to even it out. It's the race to the rush. The race to the rush to me, David.
Okay, so I'm glad you brought that up. I want to talk about Jackson Arnold for a little bit because, Blaine, you're right. I mean, we saw glimpses at Oklahoma, but we don't know enough just yet. Now, all of the potential for Jackson Arnold to be a really good college quarterback, I believe, is still there. And he was a top recruit coming out of high school, and he does a lot of things really well. The only problem with Auburn right now and Hugh Freeze, and you're talking about the Peyton Thorne experiment and him doubling down, is Auburn doesn't have a lot of time or patience right now to let someone maximize their potential. So either 6 months from now, we could be looking back and saying, man, Hugh Freeze bought a stock while it was low and Jackson Arnold reached that potential, or we could just be seeing more of the same movie. With this game in particular, because you're starting off on the road in a night game against a guy who's a national championship defensive coordinator with LSU, Jackson Arnold, to reach the potential that I'm talking about, needs to use his legs. That was some of the good stuff that we saw at Oklahoma a year ago, especially earlier in the season before he got benched. What you're saying is you think that they may need to just not let him read the RPO so much early in the game or even early in the season and sort of take the football out of his hands? Or are you going to let him, like, especially if they're able to look at what he's able to do through fall camp and say, no, we got to put a lot of this on your shoulders at the beginning of the year?
Well, we all know this, and RNA says this. I'm not saying you just do one thing all the time. I mean, doing only one thing all the time, nobody ever does that. But it's like, what are you going to do early? What are you going to trust early? I just, if it was me, the only reason I wouldn't is if Dave Aranda says, you know what? Screw this. We're going to load the box. We're going to make Jackson Arnold beat us. We're going to make Jackson Arnold beat us in single coverage. Or maybe,
through the air.
Yeah, through the air.
Yeah.
Beat us through the air. We're gonna walk a safety down in the box unless for some reason you're going empty or you do a formation that dictates something else. He may do that. I don't think he will. If he does, then I'm fine with, hey, let's lean RPO or let's spit the ball out.
Yeah.
Let's go bubble screens. Let's go now screens. Let's go underneath stuff and then try and get them to spread and then attack them with the run. You're always going to try and take what the defense gives you. But if we're saying it's even and they're going to play an even box with an even front, they're going to see 11 personnel and they're going to match it without walking an extra guy down if the tight end's detached. To me, I want to find out early if I've got more dog than you up front, if I can push you around. Because if I can push you around, we don't need to get super cute. I don't have to do this. Now, you can say, oh, well, you're just gonna kick the can down the road for Jackson Arnold to have to do it in the next game. Well, again, if it was me, if I was an offensive guy, I would try and see if I could run the ball early every game we played, because that's where it starts and stops to me. So, again, depending on what the defense, David, to answer your question, depending on what the defense is giving me from a numbers in the box, from how they are matching formations and personnels, that's obviously going to dictate what I do when I have the check with me on the sideline or I'm able to talk to the coach in the headset. But if we're saying everything's even and I'm Auburn, I'm going to try and test you early with true run game. Now, it could be zone read. But as far as the tag to pull it and spit it, I don't know early. I want to see if I can just walk in and rob the gas station and the clerk don't even look at me first.
Yeah, I mean, you walk into every game approach to see if we can win up front. But to me, it's just, I want Jackson Arnold to make the right play, make the right decision.
Let's talk about something that separates the men from the boys. I'm talking about your health. Now, the Emerson multivitamin from Responsible Man is packed with 33 key ingredients that support your body and give it the energy you need. And, new for this season, Responsible Man just launched Theodore Protein with 25 grams of clean, American-made protein power. It's fuel for men who lead, protect, and show up strong. No soy boys and no shortcuts. We're going right at the long way. And American men, unfortunately, we're on average 30 to 50 grams of protein short, leading to fatigue, slower recovery, and muscle loss over time. It also makes you bad at betting. A quality protein supplement like Theodore helps close the gap fast, clean, and strong. Plus, Responsible Man's the Daily Wire Ventures company. So you know these vitamins and proteins are made right here in the good old US of A with American quality. Now, We wouldn't endorse this if we didn't believe in it. That's why this vitamin is a part of our daily routine and why we're just glowing every time you look at your screen. Just like watching game tape, it's our secret to living a long and healthy life. So here's the deal. Right now, you can take advantage of Responsible Man's Father's Day sale and get your first order for 50% off. Just head over to responsibleman.com, but use our code BOOSTER, that's BOOSTER at checkout. You need to hurry. Still's not going to last long. That's responsibleman.com, code BOOSTER, 50% off, feeling great, super jacked, and probably tan.
Because when Auburn hadn't been in a bowl game, 2 years, right?
Yes.
Hugh Freeze, you're basically a 32-year-old chick. You got to get married now, right? You got to get married right now. All right, Jackson Arnold.
We'll get you for that one.
Jackson Arnold, y'all just started dating. He needs some time. All right, he needs some time. But if we're walking into, being afraid to put the ball in his hands to make a mistake, you already lost. In my opinion, you already lost. After the Peyton Thorne saga, you just got another guy who you're afraid to put the ball in and make the right play. I get what you're saying, Jack, and I'm not saying you're saying that. I think you should test people up front every time you walk into a game if you're an offensive coordinator. But it's time for Auburn to have a quarterback that just makes the right decision at the right time. And sometimes the right decision is what? Throwing the ball away, getting a couple yards and getting down. Auburn has got into the place of where you can see the mistake. It's like watching the rain come, right? You ever been at the lake?
Yeah.
Right? And you look down and you can see the rain start hitting the water, right? And Auburn's one of those teams that's like, hey, oh no, the rain's coming. Yeah. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And then just wait for the rain to hit.
Go grab a drink and sit on the porch.
Wait for the rain to hit. How about you just walk your ass inside and do the right thing at the right time? And if Auburn does that, we'll see. But I'm telling you, Baylor returns 65% production on defense. They have two phenomenal safeties. Their linebacker core strong. One of their best players, in my opinion, is an edge guy. So I'm just saying, Dave Aranda, he's going to play you even. He's going to mix match coverages. He's going to throw blitzes at you from your backside. So it's not going to be a walk in the park.
Oh,
if
no.
You're Auburn.
No. This isn't. No, this is not going to be an easy game, but I think it's the perfect game to find out early. And I know what you're saying with Jackson Arnold, and I agree with you. Make the right play with what the defense is giving you. What I'm saying is I don't care if we have Tom Brady or Hercules at quarterback. If I can line up and run inside zone at you and I'm getting 4.5 a pop, and I can line up and run outside zone, and I can line up and run power and run counter and run power read and run jet sweeps and manipulate the box early, I'm going to take that because I don't have to put the ball in the air. I don't know. Watch what Penn State did against Michigan or whatever Michigan did against Penn State in the second half. They said, you know what? Throwing it? Nah, we straight, bro. We're just going to pound it. So I
just don't think you can survive.
Well, again, I'm not saying you do it the whole game or all the time. I'm talking about early. As far as the defensive side that you're talking about with Baylor, they did bring in Paul Gonzalez from TCU. That the guy that I got a lot of respect for, I think does a really, really good job in the back end. They made some positional coaching movements. They kept the DC, but brought in a couple of different position coaches. I think they got a new corners coach. Gonzalez, I believe, is with the safeties. Maybe wrong on that one. Fact check me there. But when I look at the other side, if you're Baylor on offense, going up against Auburn, DJ Durkin does a really, really, really good job. I think he's done a great job as DC. I know Auburn has screwed up in some big moments defensively. There's a couple times I really wish he wouldn't rush three. I mean, we talked about it all last year. Auburn, I've never seen a team. Yeah. I've never seen a team rush three as much as Auburn and leave people open.
Yeah, you can't rush three and then bust a coverage.
Yeah, you can't rush three and have 8 guys back there in coverage and bust the coverage.
Back there.
It's incredible, actually. But there was a lot of good. With this air raid offense, the thing I think is the most deadly about it, outside of its ability to kind of use every blade of grass in the pass game, is that if the run game is not working, they have so many basically long handoff plays built into the air raid where you're not dead if you don't have balance. Now, you always want to have run-pass balance. You always want to keep the defense on their toes. But when I look at the receivers that they do have coming back, when you look at bringing Kobe Prentice in the portal, right? When you look at having backs that can catch the ball out of the backfield too, I wonder, as good as that offensive line is in the interior, tackle's a little bit of a different story. Now, I know Fugar came over from South Carolina and had a decent, a better year than he did at South Carolina after coming from Western Illinois to South Carolina at left tackle. He's coming back. He's still a little bit shaky in pass pro to me. I think Auburn, the right tackle is going to be new. I think it's probably going to be Siriaki. We'll see at the end of the day who it is, but on the edges, if you're Auburn and you got Keldrick Falk and you got some of these guys that you brought in to come off the edge, I'm very, very interested to see that matchup on the end of the line of scrimmage if Auburn can get after Sawyer Robertson early. And if they do, what is the answer to that for Baylor? If you're stuck in 3rd and 6s, because Auburn is good against the run, as good as the interior of Baylor's offensive line is, Auburn's defensive line should be good against the run. But I'm wondering what the screen game is going to look like for Baylor. How heavy is Spavs gonna lean on that to maybe try and slow this front down a little bit off the edge or get those linebackers' eyes going back and forth? Auburn still has, and he's so talented. DeMarcus Riddick's an NFL player, right? He's a freshman last year at Auburn, playing in the middle. He's going to be there again. How much pre-snap motion are you going to get to try and move his eyes and flip the strength of the formation and put him in a bind a little bit? That's what makes this matchup so intriguing to me, is that Baylor has ways to move the ball if they don't have balance. So, but again, I'm not worried about pound for pound in this one. Like I'm not worried about, okay, well, if both teams play good, who's going to win? I think Auburn's going to win if both teams play good. What I worry about is those handful of plays where Sawyer Robertson drops back, he's in the gun, whatever, makes the guy miss in the backfield, escapes the pocket, keeps his eyes downfield, and hits a home run. I'm more worried about Auburn giving up the home runs than I am them worried about giving up singles and doubles in this game, to make it make sense.
So I want to talk to you about Auburn's defense here, particularly the depth. Right now with the post-spring depth chart that's available, all of Auburn's starters on defense are going to be guys who were there, not transfers, not true freshmen. But the majority of the two deep are going to be made up of transfers who are incoming and of true freshmen. Is Auburn's defense going to be good enough that they can help them win big-time SEC football games this season if the offense doesn't play well that day, or if we just see sort of the same Jackson Arnold that we saw at Oklahoma?
Well, I think the answer to that is Auburn's going to have to catch some breaks on the injury front. Like when you look, and we say this all the time on this show, it's not the starting 22 that wins you championships. It's really the starting 40-40. You could go all the way to 50 in my mind if we're going to talk long snapper and stuff like that. But I don't know. It just feels like with the depth on defense for Auburn that they're 2 injuries away from my ass having to go out there. And that's the difference, right? And again, this roster, health-wise, like as you know, having a good roster is the best one that Auburn's had in a while. But when you look at the Georgias and the Alabamas and the Texases, what separates them is they're pretty much rolling 3 deep of guys that can ball. Their third-team guys are really just young freshmen that are probably physically ready, but you have older, more experienced guys in front of them. But God forbid, 2 guys go down in front. This guy athletically and physically can do it. It's just the mental side of it. Do you have to water down what you're calling if it's coverages in the back end? Or do you water down the amount of stunts you're calling in the front with a young guy? That's their problem. Auburn's problem is you get to the 3rd string and it's like the mayor's nephew who, is on an academic scholarship and he's an Eagle Scout. And all that stuff's great. But his ass ain't spilling the puller against Georgia. And that's not fair for me to ask him. So that's, in the long run, they're going to have to get very fortunate. But as far as the first guys they're going to throw out there, I mean, Auburn's going to throw some dudes out there. Falk's a top 5 pick. I'm telling you right now. He's going to be hell. I mean, they're going to have to double him. But at the end of the day, we don't know the answer to that yet, David. But I think if they're able to be fortunate on the injury front, they're going to have a chance.
I mean, you have to replace 5 of your 7 top tacklers on defense. That's never an easy thing to do. And if you go back and if you watch Auburn defense last year, I tell you what, on 1st and 2nd down, pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Pretty darn good.
Yeah.
But 3rd down comes along and Drew Barrymore from 51st Dates. Just forget. So I think Auburn, from a talent standpoint, I think the depth's okay. Linebackers a little bit of inexperience. But from a depth standpoint, that's fine. But you got to get off the field on 3rd down.
Well, it's the clutch thing. It's the clutch factor.
Yeah, that's a different part of it.
Yeah, that's the thing that still worries me probably the most is that, great teams, people that have true self-belief, not that you're going to win every time or it's always going to work out, but, they find ways to win. It seems like Auburn
has found ways to lose.
now, sometimes it takes 3 years to get that voodoo out. Sometimes it does. Culture doesn't flip overnight, and maybe it has. But until I see it, it's like I'll give you an example. Auburn basketball or Auburn football in 2010 with Cam Newton. I used to be like, okay, how's Auburn going to win? Like, I believe they're going to win. How are they going to win? When I watch Auburn football now, it's like, all right, how are we going to blow this? I remember, guys, last year when we're sitting there at Innisfree waiting to live stream the Alabama-Georgia game.
I remember that one.
And Auburn's playing Oklahoma and playing well.
Up big.
As good as they could play at home. In the back of my mind, it was always, how are we going to blow this? And that's why I wasn't surprised when Peyton Thorne pulled a Bobby Boucher and was like 62. See, oh, there you are, and threw him the ball and said, go score. But he just didn't jump kick him in the end zone.
That's the thing if I'm Baylor. Like, if there's one thing I'm not doing in this football game, I'm not beating myself.
Sure.
No.
I'm not going to beat myself.
On the road.
Yeah, I'm not going to turn the ball over. At least I'm trying not to turn the ball over. I'm not going to get stupid penalties that hurt us on offensive drives. I'm going to let Auburn, a.k.a. Plaxico Burress in the club, shoot himself in the foot, and then we're going to win this football game.
Low blow on.
Well, and also, guys, let's not forget, Auburn's got to make field goals.
Well, I was just going to ask you, is Baylor going to be as good on special teams this year as they were a season ago?
I mean, I think so. Because they've got the personnel to do it. But when you look at what they do on kickoff return, Baylor is not super, and I used to try and be this way as a special teams coordinator because, especially when you're just a special teams coordinator, you're trying to come up with all these different things and all these different ways and be exotic and be alternative and be new and all this. Sometimes it's addition by subtraction. Let's just be really good at the simple stuff. Let's just be really good at being able to stem back, hold up on our blocks, do it the right way, not hold on kickoff return. On punt return, understanding that when I look at the punt team, knowing by where their eyes and their feet are, whether, what I'm going to get. Where's that guy looking to come get me if they're undisciplined, right? Because a lot of times the punt team will tell you who they're going to block by who they're looking at. And then on punt, understanding, looking at the punt return team and say, hey, it's funny because when this guy's in front of me and they're running a hold-up, so running a return, his eyes are on me. But when they're coming after the punt, his eyes are not on me. You know what his eyes are on? The ball. Because he needs to know when the ball is snapped to be able to try and rush and go get the punter. So they do a lot of the little things right, and that leads to explosive things. But we'll talk about something simple. Auburn's got to find a way to make a field goal. I know McPherson had and I feel for him, IBS or like an extreme bubble guts or something. I don't know what it was. I hope he's better now because he's incredible.
Baylor has, when it comes to special teams, they have the game changer on punt return. I mean, Josh Cameron.
And these are number one wide receiver.
He was the number one punt return when it came to yards in the Big 12.
And Auburn's got a great punter, though. They got an Australian guy.
I'm just saying, you need a game breaker. You need a momentum changer. I mean, they have that guy in Josh Cameron back there. So all three phases are going to matter in this football game.
Yeah, they always do. It's going to be a hell of a matchup.
Yeah.
And I think, again, like you said, not to put the cart too far in front of the horse, but we got to live stream this one, right?
It's a Friday night,
let's go.
Friday game?
Let's go to the game and live stream it.
From the game?
Yeah.
I'm sure they'd love that.
And Auburn is a 1.5 point favorite.
1.5 point favorite. That I've seen some lines where Baylor was a favorite in some sports books. It may have flipped back, but we want to know, who are you guys picking? Auburn, Baylor, and why? Do you agree with what we said? Do you disagree? We just appreciate you being here. Make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Please keep sharing the show as well. We really appreciate you guys. It's feeding the channel. We're absolutely rocking and rolling right now, and that's because of y'all. And like the chances of me not being worried for 4 quarters, I don't care what the score is when Auburn plays Baylor, we're going. Gone.